There's been an explosion of media coverage after a jury of 6 women acquitted George Zimmerman on all charges in the killing of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. Check out some of the headlines from media-watching websites. NBC's Matt Lauer interview with Trayvon Martin's parents getting attention on Newsbusters when he asked, "Do you think the legal system failed Trayvon?" MSNBC host Chris Matthews catching the attention of a website called TV Newser, saying he was speaking for all white people, apologizing to his black colleagues for racial injustice. And the outspoken former NBA star Charles Barkley weighing in on media treatment of the story, telling Maria Bartiromo on CNBC he agrees with the Zimmerman verdict, hitting the media for giving racists a platform to vent ignorance. And an editorial in the right-leaning Washington Times saying, quote, many members of the media compared the case in Sanford, Florida to those of civil rights icons Emmett Till and Medgar Evers, an incredible stretch of fact and logic. Our Fox News Watch panel weighs in now. Judith Miller is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter and author. Kirsten Powers is a columnist for the Daily Beast, both of them Fox News contributors. What do you think overall of the media behavior since the verdict came down on Saturday night?
Well, I think it's been better than it was before the trial. I mean, look, there's been a lot of it. And I think what's really amazing is the extent to which this issue continues to have, this trial continues to have resonance. And many of the columns that I read focused on the issue of whether or not this was a racial crime and a racially influenced verdict. A lot of thoughtful coverage there.
We have, Kirsten, a black president. We have a black attorney general. This nation has come very far since the murders of Emmett Till and Medgar Evers. Why compare this case to those?
Well, I don't think that they should be comparing those cases, because anybody who's familiar with those cases knows that they really have nothing to do with each other, and it diminishes what happened in those situations, I think, to suggest that this is the same. However, this is a tragedy, and I don't have any problem with the question that Matt Lauer asked, and I'm surprised that people have actually made an issue out of it. I think if your child was killed, a 17-year-old, and the person who shot him, and he had been unarmed, I think you probably would feel like justice had failed you. I just think that's a fair thing to say, regardless of where you fall on this issue. But unfortunately, this has gotten so divisive because of the claims, the comparisons to the Medgar Evers, and then on the other side, I feel like the same thing is happening.
But it's not as though Trayvon Martin was shot in the back. I mean, you heard the one juror say that she thinks he probably threw the first punch. He was on top of George Zimmerman, straddling him, punching him, and battering his head into the sidewalk.
Right, but this presumes that it's okay to follow people at night. And look, I put myself in Trayvon Martin's position, and I say, I'm walking along, and somebody comes up behind me. Maybe Trayvon Martin was standing his ground. I think that there are two sides to this. The jury verdict, I think, probably was right, but that's because the law is kind of screwy.
Right.
But the idea that people can't see why this would be upsetting is what's concerning to me. That you have so many conservatives sort of saying, what's the big deal? Trayvon threw the first punch. Like, that's really oversimplifying what happened.
It really is. I mean, the idea is, do you have a right to walk home from a grocery store at night and not have an overzealous person feel that he had to protect his community? I think the Stand Your Ground law of Florida received a lot of publicity, a lot of attention, and I think it's interesting that the president himself did not frame this issue in terms of a racial crime. He talked about a lot of other things, including gun violence, but he did not talk about race.
But the media also have been making heavy use of the pictures that the family first trotted out when this unfortunate case happened, where Trayvon is this innocent and angelic little kid, 12 years old. I mean, that's the picture that is often shown of him. In fact, he was 17. He was much bigger than George Martin, and he had been suspended from school for a graffiti incident in which they inspected his backpack and found a bunch of jewelry which he refused to explain.
Right, but does that mean he should be killed?
He is innocent. He was innocent.
Yeah.
He actually didn't do anything in this situation, and there are a lot of kids who get into trouble, white kids, black kids, kids of all races who get into trouble, and I don't think that we should, say because of that we should assume that he's violent.
But again, we don't know what happened on that sidewalk, and the media have turned it into a case in which he seemed, they would have you believe that he had absolutely nothing to do with what happened that night.
There's just such a disconnect on this. I don't know. I don't understand it. He was not the person who, I mean, one person is on tape saying that he followed him, you know, so you're out, like I said, I'm walking along. What I've learned from this case is someone can follow me at night and I cannot defend myself against that person, because if I defend myself against that person and they kill me, they're justified. I think that's what a lot of people see in this case, and you know, I'm mystified that some people just can't